Hey there, welcome to the Uplift. We got a great show for you, a great cast of characters as well. Among them, these two bald eagles caught bickering on a nature cam. It's what they were fighting about that really stole our hearts. Also, a TikTok star rescued from a deadly situation, how he's now using his platform to help others. And did I mention he's a rabbit? Plus, a woman selflessly taking care of her ex-husband alongside her new husband. You heard that right. The blended family shares its inspiring story with who else? David Begnaud. And Nancy Chen introduces us to a once guilty pleasure that's become a widespread trend, thanks in part to TikTok again for the win. Any guesses? Find out that and much more coming up. You're watching, do I really have to tell you, The Uplift. Hey there, I'm Tony DeCopel, and this is The Uplift, the show that lifts you up for at least the next 30 minutes, you and me as well. And we're going to begin with a former guilty pleasure that's been gaining more respect in recent years. TikTok is part of the reason why. Here's Nancy Chen.
If you're looking for love, you'll find lots of it on the shelves of the ripped bodice.
So there's something for everyone.
Yes, I really truly believe that. If I can't find something for you, I'm not doing my job.
Leah Koch and her sister Bea opened the Brooklyn bookstore last summer. One of the first of its kind in the country.
So we have No Good Duke Goes Unpunished, Booked on a Feeling.
Packed with pink and plenty of puns, it's a love letter dedicated solely to romance of all kinds, including queer, historical, and even paranormal.
For so long, romance books have been relegated to a dark corner in the bookstore. And now we have a whole shop devoted to them.
Yeah, we wanted to create a place that was the exact opposite of that, where romance is on display, front and center, completely celebrated. The question, do you have any werewolf cowboys, is taken seriously. And we're like, yes, right this way.
This was my first 5-star read of this year.
The shift comes directly from readers, driven by passionate reviewers on TikTok and a community known as Book Talk. Sales of romance novels shot up by more than 50% from 2021 to 2022. And they've kept growing as the steamy genre, once dominated by Fabio covers, finally gets its due.
It's always been the largest share of adult fiction and the best-selling. Was it treated as if it was? Absolutely not.
And why is that?
Romance is not exclusively, but primarily a genre that is targeted towards women and produced by women. It was always going to have an uphill battle.
The books themselves have changed significantly. People see themselves in these books a lot more than they used to.
Absolutely. Traditionally, romance has not been inclusive at all. And we still have a tremendous way to go, but we have made incredible strides forward. There is so much more available now for everyone.
Another major factor, the rise of romantic fantasy, or romantasy, a love story set in a fantasy world, usually with a few rather spicy passages not suitable for morning television. 6 of the top 10 books on the New York Times bestselling list right now belong in the romantasy genre.
I just want to go over some things first.
And the community isn't just online, with events like trivia nights devoted to the Court of Thorns and Roses series.
The danger of fantasy that you find in it kind of heightens the excitement of the romance.
After initially hesitating about pivoting to the style, author Jennifer Armentrout now has 10 romantasy books to her name.
You have to create that world. You have to establish rules for that world. It's a lot of fun, but it's daunting.
And today, From Blood and Ash, my first high fantasy.
Armentrout published the first of her best-selling Blood and Ash series in March of 2020. It was an instant hit.
Anytime that the world becomes very stressful, very tense, and things are out of control, you tend to notice there's an uptick in fantasy, uptick in paranormal. And I think that's because it is more of an escape, because you're not entering a world that's familiar.
And as more women are reading, writing, and celebrating the books, the West Virginia author says the shift goes beyond the page. A noteworthy evolution in a world dominated more recently by series like Game of Thrones.
Fantasy traditionally, as a genre, has been associated with violence toward women. But it seems like fantasy romance really changes that.
In a lot of fantasy, sex is a weapon. And one of the things that fantasy romance takes back is taking back sexuality, is taking back autonomy. And a lot of fantasy romances, you see the role reversal. You see it's the women who are in charge. And that's a long time coming.
Coming up, why two bickering bald eagles captured hearts around these United States. It was not the fact they were fighting, it was what they were fighting for that really grabbed us. Plus, David Begnaud meets a woman caring for her ex-husband even though she has a new husband. Yep, you heard that right. The inspiring story behind this unusual blended family. Coming up.
He is a very part of who I am because I carry his heart in my heart, and I always will. And so the decisions that I've made to have him in our life, be a part of our family, is because I can't not. You know, when somebody is so tied to you, you can't untie that. I love you.
A pair of bickering bald eagles on a webcam recently captured hearts around the U.S. when viewers fell in love with what the birds were fighting for. It's not that they were fighting, it's what they were fighting for. Here's Joy Benedict with the story.
A family drama is happening here, atop this pine tree towering over Big Bear Lake in the San Bernardino National Forest. And you don't need an eagle eye to spot it. A solar-powered 24-hour live webcam gives a global audience a close-up view of Jackie and Shadow. Inside their nest, 3 eggs, a rarity for bald eagles and a first for Jackie.
Pip watches when we watch for the first dent or crack in the eggshell.
More than a month through blizzards and threat of predators, these two birds have sat vigil on their eggs.
And they have a little egg tooth, it's called, on the top of their beak that they use to push against the shell and finally break a hole in it. And they start pushing when they don't have enough air inside.
Sandy Steers is a bird watcher who first eyed the eagles from the ground when Jackie was just a chick.
You're seeing the whole nest is what you're seeing on that tree.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
It is. It's about 5.5 feet across and 6 feet deep.
She helps run the conservation group Friends of Big Bear Valley, which first installed a camera in 2015.
Is there anything that she has done different this time with the eggs?
This time they are both being very much more careful about sitting on the eggs. When Jackie gets ready to leave, Shadow is already in the air and ready to land on the nest.
Viewers watch Jackie and Shadow squabble over whose turn it is to keep the eggs warm, with Jackie usually winning and Shadow providing food.
This year she made it to 62 hours straight on the eggs without a break. As long as there's any bad weather at all, Jackie will not get off the eggs.
With 3 eggs, the whole hatching process could take a week.
My hope, of course, is to see 3 chicks.
Hope for those watching and waiting, as symbolic as our feathered emblem of freedom.
Coming up, meet a TikTok star who got a second chance at life when he was rescued from a meat farm. Any guesses who he is? Thinking. Here's a hint. He's fluffy, weighs 30 pounds, and always wears a teeny tiny baseball cap. Plus, we visit a museum filled with history and some pretty, odd artifacts. Stick around. Not gonna wanna miss this. You're watching The Uplift. Maybe you've heard of Alexander the Great, but how about Alex the Great? Well, he's very big on TikTok, and he's pretty big in real life, too. Here's CBS San Francisco's Andrea Nakano.
He's handsome, fluffy, cuddly, and one of a kind. It's rare to find a bunny this outgoing and gentle.
He's probably 1 in a million.
Josh Rowe adopted Alex the Great 3 years ago.
We ended up rescuing him from a meat farm out of Modesto.
The Flemish giant now weighs 30 pounds and enjoys cruising around town in his mini car. He also loves meeting people and gets love everywhere he goes.
He's very dog-like, but I think he thinks he's part human too. He's got to be in the middle of everything, he's a good boy.
But life for Alex the Great goes way beyond making friends and having fun. He does photo shoots so he can donate money to charity. He's also a certified therapy animal and volunteers as part of the WAG Brigade at Bay Area airports and visits patients in hospice care.
truly get gratification just from people enjoying him, right? Enjoying seeing him, and not just seeing a rabbit, but a rabbit who truly is enjoying this, you know. So it's rewarding in its own way.
Alex the Great and his dad, Josh, put in a lot of work to be able to volunteer. He had to pass the same temperament tests as his pup friends.
He's got to be trained just like a dog. He's got to meet all the same qualifications as a dog, which means he has to be able to be command trained. And so he understands commands, not necessarily verbal commands like you would do with a dog. He does more hand signals.
Now he has adoring fans around the world with more than 25,000 followers on Instagram. And his dad is there to take good care of him every step of the way as he comforts everyone he meets.
This one knows I know what he's thinking, so he's not too worried about any situation. He'll never leave my side.
Alex the Great will be back at Oracle Park this season to watch the Giants play ball. Win or lose, he'll always be happy to get a head rub from new and old friends.
Aren't we all? All right, we're going to take you now to a museum in Minnesota that is not only filled with history, but with some odd history. Here's John Lordson.
We are one of the oldest historical societies in the state.
At first glance, the Becker County Museum in Detroit Lakes is like any other museum. You have Native American history, natural history, and then you have a strange sort of history.
Sometimes history is subjective, let's just put it that way.
In fact, some of the artifacts here are so odd, they were featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not. That includes the world's tiniest gas station. It was owned and operated by the Sauer brothers in the early 1900s.
And due to its location right in the middle of the road, essentially, it was 3.5 by 4 feet wide.
The gallery has one woman in particular to thank for their rare artifacts. Her name was Mary Lewis, and she operated the Lewis Hotel. She didn't like cussing, and she didn't like people arguing over religion and politics. So she gave her guests other things to talk about.
A two-headed calf would definitely get you away from religion and politics.
I think so, yeah. She was a genius. She came up with all these different things. She had a mind for curio hunting.
During the heydays of the Lewis Hotel, railroad workers were a big part of business. Mary enjoyed their company, and she enjoyed her parrots. But the railroad workers took it upon themselves to expand the bird's vocabulary.
4-letter words that we can't say on TV.
That's right. She went through 12, and this is parrot number 12.
Okay, what happened to them once they got a foul mouth? They disappeared.
Yeah.
They flew south.
She disappeared them.
When the hotel closed, its oddities eventually made their way here. Included was a giant ball of string that hotel workers put together from parcels and packages. It won't be mistaken with Darwin's great ball of twine, but there's more here than meets the eye.
Now it's 42 pounds and 140 miles long. And yeah.
140 miles long.
Yes, but I haven't tried it out, and I don't
That's about as far as we drove to come here.
There's also a wolf named Old Three Legs, who once had a national bounty put on him for killing livestock. And there's a Becker County meteorite that was discovered in 1936.
The story is they found it, and the sons actually took it to school at the time in their little red wagon.
The idea behind all of this is to show that every town has a story. Those stories might get a little longer over the years, but quite often, they're the fabric of rural Minnesota.
That's what I think makes county museums so unique. It's really the stories behind it, right? It's the passion that you find of what people collected and why they collected it and why they found it intriguing. It's fun to share those stories.
Coming up in a moment, meet the woman who still lives with her ex-husband alongside her new husband. You're going to learn a lot more about this blended family after the break. David Begnow now introduces us to that blended family, one that demonstrates what unconditional love really is.
From the moment Chris and James Armstrong married, they created an unusual blended family. That's because Chris brought with her ex-husband, Brandon. They were high school sweethearts who married at 21.
What do you remember about the wedding?
I still remember being at the church and them opening the doors and walking down with my dad and seeing Brandon, at the end of the aisle, and just knowing that I wanted to spend my life with him and that I loved him.
2 years after they got married, Brandon was T-boned by a moving truck, leaving him with a traumatic brain injury.
He was in a coma, and we didn't know when or if he would wake up and what would happen.
Although he did wake up, he was unable to take care of himself.
He was in something called post-traumatic amnesia at that time, and so his memory, which really he's never really fully gotten out of, but his memory was like 10 seconds long. This was really when it became clear that I went from being a wife to a caregiver. My friends even came to me after I'd been doing this for several months, and they said, "We love you so much and we support you, but you can't keep doing this. You're drowning. We see you drowning."
So after 5 years of caring for Brandon and longing to have children and wanting to again be in love with someone who could be in love with her, Chris decided to divorce Brandon.
Whenever I thought about moving forward with a divorce, the thing that terrified me the most would be that I wouldn't be able to care for Brandon. Stand up. There we go.
So she asked a judge to make her Brandon's legal guardian.
And I told her, nothing's going to change. I'm going to continue to take care of Brandon forever. And each year now, I have to renew guardianship papers, and they usually ask for a picture. And now I get to send the picture of Brandon with our whole family, and I've gotten to write the judge and tell her, I don't know if you remember me, but I've stood true to what I said, and Brandon's an integral part of our family.
By creating this family with James Armstrong, she found love for herself and for Brandon.
It's a sad story, but there's a lot of beauty in it too. Yeah.
Well, you want to know what moved me the most when I heard the story?
What's that?
The thought of you loving her enough to help care for Brandon.
Yeah.
That's what made me weep.
It's not just loving her, it's loving Brandon too. He needs us.
Yeah.
He needs people that love him.
That love looks like feeding him, maintaining his hygiene, taking him to therapy appointments, and giving him the willpower and a little extra willpower to keep living.
I think in the physicality of him helping with Brandon, that's one piece. I mean, the fact that we change Brandon together, I can do it by myself, but it's very, very hard. James helps me. Like that is such a gift of love.
You ready? You can sit down, I got you.
James cares for Brandon in the same fatherly way he watches he and Chris's children, 4-year-old Meadow and 6-year-old Juniper. They snuggle up to the now 38-year-old man they call Uncle Brandon.
Hey!
What's up, dude?
Hi, sweetheart.
How are you, huh?
Brandon lives in a nursing home, but every few days, they bring him home. On the day we spent with them, Juniper nearly jumped in Brandon's wheelchair after school.
It's ticklish.
It made me feel good to be able to make him smile by playing his favorite artist. You want to play some Bob Marley?
Bob Marley.
Yeah, Bob Marley.
Yeah.
He was unusually engaged on the day we spent with them.
Yeah.
Today, I feel like especially, you're like super tuned in, which is cool, because it's like it comes and goes, Some days we can really connect, and some days we can't.
The good days and the not so good ones are chronicled on Chris's TikTok account. There, she has found some of the grief support she's always been looking for.
Where did we both work in college? We worked at Casa Ole.
Brandon's long-term memory is one thing the accident didn't take away from him entirely. She is the one person he recognizes, always.
You remember the song that we danced to at our wedding? They read you Cinderella. Yeah. He is a very part of who I am because I carry his heart in my heart, and I always will. And so the decisions that I've made have him in our life, be a part of our family, is because I can't not. You know, when somebody is so tied to you, you can't untie that. I love you.
Before we left them, Chris told us something James said which shocked us. Something so unlikely, so improbable, but so beautiful.
He said if some miracle, treatment happens for people with a brain injury and Brandon can be healed, he said, I want you to be with him. You were with him first. And I think that it's, I don't think that's going to happen, but just the fact that, I don't know, you're just a very special person. You really are.
I don't think I am, but I just
are.
I do what I think is right.
Yeah.
You know? I do what my heart tells me to do.
And then James said this.
I also told her if anything happens to her where she passes away, I will fight for guardianship.
Yeah.
You will have another advocate.
Oh boy, that is our show. I'm pretty confident it brightened your day, lifted you up. If for some reason it didn't, though, reruns are free. Go ahead and press play again. I'm gonna go find some good news. Is that something about you? Over here.